It is. It is. Got it? So a couple announcements real quick. One is the special music that Joseph and Madison sing on occasion. We can't stream it on YouTube because we get copyright strikes, which I blame on them. Before them, we never got copyright strikes on our music. Now I got some copy wrong strikes. They're like, no, you broke the algorithm. But we can't. So what we do is we upload it to our website. Now our website is in transition. We're revamping it, but it will continue to be uploaded there. So if you like the music they do, you can go there and you can download it. We upload the video and the audio, so you can get that there if you're interested in that. And then the other thing is, we're having a little 4th of July get together, and apparently there's confusion over who's invited. None of you invited. No, I'm joking. You're all invited. You got an invitation, and you got an invitation, and you all get an invitation. So I don't want to hear any whining from anybody that they don't think they're invited, and why don't we like you? We don't like you, but you are invited. You're all invited. All right. So, really, everyone's invited to the house. We do not provide fireworks, but my neighbor would love to sell you some, and so you can buy them from him, or you can bring them. As long as you shoot them towards his house and not my house, cool. And we have the meat. We're going to have barbecue. We have Nolan did a brisket. We're making ribs and sausage and all that. And so that's all done. If you want to bring something, you bring sides or desserts or nothing. That's fine too. It doesn't matter. You just come. We just want you to be there. All right. So we're going to be again in 1 Peter today. 1 Peter. And we're going to look at some of the priorities that Peter sees, having gone through the things we talked about going back several months, I guess it's been overall. We've gone back several months talking about the message of 1 Peter, what the admonition he's giving, which to me is a very positive one. And it's really amazing to me when I read epistles like Peter's, and you consider the historical backdrop of when this was written, what their experience was at that moment, right? They didn't have an easy life. Christianity wasn't on the upswing. It wasn't on the uptick into political power. It was persecuted, especially the apostles, even more so than the primitive church. The apostles all were designated to death. They had a death sentence on them. I mean, Jesus tells Peter at the end of Jesus' ministry, and just like starting out Peter's ministry, he's like, here's how you want your ministry to start. He's like, you're going to be bound, and you're going to be hauled off to where you don't want to go, and you're going to die a martyr's death. And that's like the Damocles sword hanging over Peter's head, his whole ministry. He knows this is coming. So you'd almost think when you're reading these epistles, you'd find these embittered souls, these angry people, these resentful people who look at the world that is persecuting them and hating them, and they've killed their Lord, and now they're persecuting them, and they've done it forever. And you'd almost think what you're going to find is just like a very closed and a very self-protected and very resentful and angry epistle, and you don't find anything of the sort. Nothing of the sort. And it's not just Peter who is this way. You read Paul's epistles, same way. In fact, the closer you get to Paul's demise, the sweeter the epistles get. You read his first epistle, which is probably Galatians, and it's biting and sarcastic. But by the time you get to Philemon and 2 Peter, I challenge you to read Philemon and not weep. It's an amazing, optimistic, positive, sweet, forgiving, loving letter. Tremendous statement by the Apostle Paul. They exhibit the type of Christianity that they want us to have. And so when Peter writes 1 Peter, we've talked about this. He tries to communicate to us, I should say. He tries to draw out of us the mindset that we actually have. Because I think, like I've said several times before, we look at ourselves in the mirror today, probably most of us. If you're like me, this is you. Now maybe some of you have overcome this, and that's great. you're probably, many of you like me, you look at yourself in the mirror and you don't see much, and you don't think much of yourself. And maybe some of you even think that's real spiritual to see yourself as nothing. It isn't. It's not spiritual, it's faithlessness. Christ has made us tremendous, tremendous beings. It's like what Mike taught in Sunday school. He has made us kings and priests, not in future, now, right now. You're not to be a son of God, you are a son of God. And you need to stop pretending that you're not. You need to stop acting as if it weren't true. You need to realize that this is your real true nature. And it is hidden. You're like that child in the illustration of Galatians. That to all the world there doesn't seem to be any distinction. But the king looks out at the prince that no one sees as a prince, and he knows exactly who that is. There's no doubt in the Father's mind that the Son is heir of all things. That's what Peter says about us. We have an enormous inheritance, not by merit, but because Christ has redeemed us and transformed us. And it is not pride, it is not immodesty for you to accept that reality and live your life accordingly. That is faith. That is faith. And that's what Peter wants you to think. He wants you to go out into the world every day knowing that even though the world can't tell the difference between you and the plebeian out on the road, you're different. And you know you're different. He wants you to have that mindset. And so for the first 2 chapters, that's what he's trying to drum into us. Because it's so easy. I think Peter knew how easy it is to lose sight of that. He knows how easy it is to become so self-conscious and so self-aware and so down on yourself, right, that even a young maid can make you waver. And so he wants to drill that into our heads. And we need to wake up every morning and remind ourselves who we are. This isn't about who we wish we were. You don't need to wish. You already are. If you are saved, you are a son of God. You have been reborn. You are a king and priest of God. That's who you are. And when you don't live that way, it's because you're pretending you're not. And you need to stop doing that. We all need to stop doing that, right? So, having said that, we get down to chapter 3, verse 8, and this is what he says. And I'll read from verse 8, and we'll read, I think it's through verse 12. But anyways, he says, "Finally, be ye all of one mind, having compassion on one another. Love as brethren. Be pitiful. Be courteous, not rendering evil for evil, or railing for railing, but contrariwise, blessing, knowing that you are thereunto called, that you should inherit a blessing. For he that will love life and see good days, let him refrain his tongue from evil, and his lips that they speak no guile. Let him eschew evil and do good. Let him seek peace and ensue it. For the eyes of the Lord are over the righteous, and his ears are open unto their prayers. The face of the Lord is against them that do evil." The last half of this long sentence is actually an extended quote out of the book of Psalms, and most of you probably know that. But he's taking a large passage out of Psalms. It'd be the 34th Psalm, and he's taken a large citation out of it, which is actually kind of rare in the New Testament. They cite the Old Testament a lot, but not extensively like this. But he's taken an extendedly long citation and he's worked it into this admonition, and it's kind of the underpinning, the fundamental underpinning of the admonition that he's given us. But I want you to notice something before we talk about what he's saying here. I want you to know something about this citation that I find very interesting. When you go over to Psalms 34 and you read it there, it's not exactly the same. Peter has improved it in a way. What's interesting to me, and I noticed this in Spanish a long time ago, that when you read like the Spanish translation of the Bible in the Old Testament, the Spanish in the Old Testament sounds older than the Spanish in the New Testament. It has more archaic words. The construction is a little more difficult. When you get to the New Testament, it's easier Spanish to read. It's a very interesting thing, and I think it's because they're trying to parallel. They're trying to really nail the construction of the original language that they're translating, and I think they do a fantastic job. So you'd kind of expect that if you were to look at Psalms 34 and 1 Peter 3, where it's cited, you would think, well, in the Psalms, you'd have like harder. But actually, it's the other way around here, which is very interesting to me. I don't know if that interests you, but to me, it's a very interesting thing that when you look at the Psalms version of this, David's original version of this phrase he's quoting here, all these words that seem still strange in English, like why did they write that? You ever wonder why they said eschew evil? Some of you don't know what eschew is. It has nothing to do with your shoe, right? It's to shun evil. But why not just put, and modern translations do, they change these words and they make them easier to understand for the normal person. And when you go to Psalms 34, they don't use eschew. That's what's so interesting. They say depart. Depart from evil. That's what it says in the King James translation. In Psalms 34, it says depart. So why didn't they just put depart in 1 Peter? Obviously, they know how to use that word. Or he says, ensue peace. You know what he says? You know what it says in Psalms 34 in the same translation? Pursue peace. Now that's a lot easier word, right? Everyone knows what pursue means. Ensue just sounds kind of weird. Why would they do this? Well, if you'll compare these Psalms 34 to 1 Peter chapter 3, I think you'll see there is an incredible difference between let's say, the spirit of these texts. When you are in Psalms 34, it's about doing. It's about action. It's about doing something about it. Depart from evil, right? Walk away. Make distance from it. When you get to 1 Peter, it's an entirely different mindset. It's about how you think about it, about how you feel about it. It's about how you naturally react to it. Telling us here. All right. So let's look at that. What Peter is saying here. Peter is telling us that understanding that we're different than what we used to be, and we're different than what everyone else is. How then should our approach to life and to the world and to persecution and tribulation? And he just went through all the less than ideal relationships you can be in, right? He talked about wives that have husbands that aren't noble, that aren't reasonable. He's talked about men who have wives who aren't loving. He's talked about servants who have masters, which is not an ideal relationship or situation. And so he's saying in all these things where everything is less than ideal and everything seems to be against, and you're thinking, I'm an heir. I'm immensely powerful. I'm the son of God himself. Why are these things happening to me? Why can't I have a life that reflects the reality that's in me? And the easiest thing to slip into would be resentment and anger and frustration. Peter says, no. Be of one mind. Be compassionate. Be loving. Be pitiful. Now, some of you think you have that down, but that's not what he's talking about. You're like, yes, 1 out of 5. No. Be full of empathy. Be empathetic would be the modern psychobabble word, right? Empathetic. Be full of pity. Pity people. Have care for them. Be sympathetic. Be courteous. You know where we get the word courteous? It's so interesting. It's an anomaly, but it's a very interesting one, right? We get the word courteous from acting as if you belong in the court. That's why it has the word court in it. There's acting like you actually belong there. Too many of us as Christians don't live our lives like we actually belong in the heavenly courts. It looks like we've snuck in. We know we've snuck in. Everybody knows we've snuck in, and we just act like it. Right? We're the little hillbillies over in the corner spitting on the furniture. No, we shouldn't be that way. You should live as if you actually deserve. I know that's hard for you to swallow as a Christian and understanding grace, but God wants you to live like you actually deserve to be there. I'm not saying you do deserve to be there. He wants you to live like He has made you deserving to be there. You have a right to be there. He says in Hebrews that we enter in to the throne of grace with confidence. And we enter in well-mannered. Meaning what, according to Peter? That we're loving and compassionate and empathetic and joyful. Nobody comes into the presence of the throne of God sad. Read the Psalms. You weren't allowed there that way. You were mourning. You needed to go away. Go mourn. But you did not come into the presence of God mourning. You came bathed and cleaned and happy. We should be joyful, not angry. We should be happy and thankful and loving and majestic, not low. It says, be of one mind. We should be unified. We think, and I know I did for a very long time, and I still fight this every day. We think what we need to do is we need to do things. Do the works. We got to do the works. Too many Christians aren't doing the works. We got to go out and do some works. This isn't in any way a condemnation of any work that anyone's doing. I applaud all Christian ministries. That's wonderful. These are things to do also. These are things that too many of us Christians who are fixated on doctrine, these are doctrines that we ought to fixate a little more on, right? We think of doctrine as being like arguments over the Trinity or arguments over hell or Calvinism or whatever. I don't know. We all have these things, and I am not trying to diminish any of those. Those are all very important. No doubt, very important. They need to be discussed. We're not saying let's lay down all doctrines and let's all just sing kumbaya together. We can maintain those, but these are doctrines also that too often get short shrift in Christianity. Amazingly, Christ never said, they are going to know you're my disciples because you're going to be able to recite the creed so well. They're going to know you're my disciples because you're going to be able to clash swords over the most minor doctrines possible. No, he said they will know you're my disciples. You're going to love one another. How have so many Christians, not all, there are some that we should look to as a real example of this, no doubt, but many, like myself, have lost this distinction that we should have as Christians. And when Peter is telling you, look, you're not who you think you are, and you need to start living like who you really are, these are the things that he says you need to work on. You need to be unified. You need to find unity. You need to have compassion. You need to be compassionate on others, not just on yourself. Right? We're always compassionate on ourselves. No, you need to be compassionate one of another. You need to love like brethren. Not like that one preacher I one time heard that says, I love you here, but if I meet you in the parking lot, you're fair game. Not like that. Not like that. We need to love the way brethren love each other. How do brethren love each other? I didn't have a brother growing up. I didn't know it, but I had 4 sisters. I thought I had 3, but no, there was a bonus one. Try that on for size, right? But I have 2 boys, right? And when you look at how, like brothers love each other, they may bloody their noses, they may fight each other, they may wrestle each other, they may beat each other up and be angry, and yet there is a bond between brothers that Christians are told to emulate. It doesn't mean we're never going to disagree. How can we not disagree when you're all so wrong about so many things? Sometimes you're up talking, I just want to wrestle you to the ground and give you an atomic wedgie so you just stop. No. But even if we disagree, it can be in love. Especially should be in love. We should be full of empathy. We should care about what is happening, not just the people in the church. This isn't just how Peter wants you to act here. He wants you to act this way at your job. He wants you to act this way when you're at Six Flags. He wants you to be something different. You're supposed to stride through life majestically, elevated above the pettiness of the world, because you're not petty. You're glorious. Christ has made you glorious. So what are you worried about? You're resentful because someone in the world is mean to you. They took your parking spot. Let them have it. Get out and sweep it for them first. Open the door for them. Say, have it. Probably the best you're ever going to get. No, don't say that. That's nasty. Don't be nasty. See, that's me. I'm always nasty at the end. Terry always says, I'll get her right to the point where she's like, oh, that's beautiful. And then I have to go and ruin it. She says, you always ruin everything. I do. I ruin everything. It's true. It's true. Don't render evil. See that? There it is. Don't render evil for evil. Railing for railing. He says, what do you render when you're getting evil? When you're getting railing, what do you give back? He says, give back blessing. Why? Because you've been called to inherit blessing. That's your life is blessing. Where are you getting all this railing and evil from to give back? There shouldn't be any left. This isn't about working up. You're like, oh, I don't know if I can do that. You can, because it's real hard not to. This is who you are. You want to find peace in your life? It's amazing how he says this, and I love the text he chooses to quote for this. You want to love life? Christians, we don't really think about that mostly in those terms, right? Loving life seems kind of pansy to even say that. Nah, that's not good. And life's supposed to be hard. Christianity's hard. We're all hard. We're soldiers. We're going to endure hardship. Okay. But Peter says, you want to love life? You want to see good days? You want to love life? Do this. Focus on these things. Make this a priority. Decide that starting tomorrow morning, you're just going to let all that railing go, all that retribution go, all that anger and frustration, and you're not getting yours. You don't get your due respect, and I'm a child of God, and no one cares, and everyone's mean to me. Just let that all go because it's beneath you. Do you think that a king sits around on his throne worried what the plebeians think of him? No. I know we like to criticize our leaders. We think they care. They don't. They don't. They don't care. They just smile. It doesn't matter. Why do you care? Why do I care? We have so many more important things to think about, like love and peace, life, compassion, courteousness. What a strange little thing to put in there. Courteous one to another. These are things that we should care about and think about. He says, you want to love life? You want to see good days? Refrain your tongue from evil. Speak no guile. Eschew evil. Do good. Seek peace and sue it. For the eyes of the Lord are over the righteous, and his ears are open under their prayers. That's another little subtle difference he changed. In Psalms, what does he say, Adrian? Their cry. See how Psalms is kind of like action-oriented and negative or pessimistic? He just makes a subtle difference. It says, the eyes of the Lord are upon, that's another change. Instead of over, they're upon. I'm sorry, over instead of upon. They're over their prayers, open to their prayers. What a tremendously optimistic view. What a tremendously optimistic view. You want to love life? Are you tired of being miserable? Are you tired of struggling? One of the most amazing things to me, whenever I give marriage counsel, and this isn't much because very few people are like brave enough to ask, and I don't blame them. But when I do, I'm always amazed at one thing in all marriages, and this is in mine too. It's not like I'm being like sanctimonious. Whenever we have trouble, which is hardly ever, it's only when Terry's bad, but hardly ever, she's hardly ever. Why do we choose to be miserable? You realize how easy it is to just say, okay, let's not be miserable. Let's just not do this. Let's not be miserable. Let's just, both of us quit. Both of us quit fighting. Both of us quit wanting our own. Let's put the other first. You say it's not that easy. No, actually, it really is. It is that easy. It really is that easy. Now, both have to do it. One person can't. That's the complication of marriage, right? Both wheels have to turn the same direction, or you just go around in circles. But if you both would just turn in the same direction, just not be miserable. You could just be happy. You could love life. That's what Peter's saying. He says, you want to love life? You want to have good days? Eschew evil. Ensue peace. Tremendous, tremendous things. We are obliged by our nature to demonstrate, to exhibit, to inhabit that which we have been called to. This isn't God putting a burden on you. If you hear this and you think, oh, another burden, I hate going to church because all they do is tell me things I should be doing that I'm not doing, you're not understanding. This isn't a rule. This is an observation. We could make rules, and Christianity has kind of devolved itself into rules, right? Let's make rules. What you should do and what you shouldn't do. And let's make sure everybody knows. In fact, let's preach about them every Sunday. Let's preach all the rules, all the do's, all the don'ts. Let's make sure everybody knows. And when they break the rules, let's make sure we embarrass them. Let's make sure we chastise them. Bring them up. Call them down. Stand them up. Sit them down. Let's do it. Make sure everyone's following the rules. We need rules, rules, rules. Some of you really like rules. You think, yes, where's that church? I want a church with more rules. Rules would be fine if they worked. It's like these people have never read the Old Testament. God says, let's try it for 2,000 years. Let's try it. No, rules don't work. Rules don't work. You know what works? Not wanting to do it. If you're say, I'm going to make a rule, I'm not going to eat cake. That's my rule. Probably not going to work. But if you're like me and you just hate cake, it'll just mold on the counter. I won't even touch it because I don't like it. Oh, that's so much better than a rule. That works so much better. You think, well, did God give us rules? Not really. Not really. I know that might offend some, but no, not really. You know what he gave you? He gave you a different nature. And it's better than rules. Better. Now, if you're thinking right now, woo, I found the right church. The church of no rules, I can do anything I want. You can. Do anything you want. But you don't understand what I'm saying. Then you have missed the point. You think, whoa, no rules? That means that it's easier. No, actually, harder. At least from the standpoint of those who are looking at it from a rule-based system, right? That's harder. Whenever I get people ask me, especially in Mexico, I'd always get this question. Almost every conference, somebody, usually a young person, but somebody would come up and say, brother, because they call everyone their brother. I don't like that, but they do. They say, brother, hermano, that's how they say it. Is it okay for me to, I don't know, go to a dance, get a tattoo? Well, they never liked my answer. Because my answer was always like, well, you tell me. Well, they don't like that. They want a rule. Christ didn't give us a rule. He gave us a new heart. He gave us a new heart. And that's better. That works. And that's what Peter is trying to tell you through all of this. You have a new nature. It is typified in that you are an heir of God. And he tries to give you that positive initial outlook on it. He says you have this amazing inheritance because of the new birth that's given you a new nature. And now you have a new desire. And if you're not living according to that, if you don't see it in your life, it's because you've been deceived and you've been tricked, and you need to confront reality and realize you are an heir of the King. You are a prince and a priest of God. And if you really are one, how can you not act like that? How can you think of these things? How can you gird up the loins of your mind with these truths and then not begin to act regally? You can't. That's the answer. You can't. When you realize who you really are, and every day you wake up and you gird your mind with that truth, it will change the way you live. And it isn't because you're trying to follow a set of rules. Rules will no longer be meaningful. We have been, he says, we have been called to inherit blessing. That's the sum of this. You've been called to inherit a blessing. You've been made heirs of love, heirs of compassion, heirs of unity, courteousness. It's not the message probably you expect to hear out of someone like Peter. You're thinking, oh, he's going to drop the hammer on us. Not exactly. Well, maybe, depending on how you look at it, but not exactly. Do we deserve to be rebuked? Sure, absolutely. Absolutely. We also deserve to go to hell. I mean, but does it gonna fix anything? If we lambasted you for everything you've done wrong and made you fearful of ever coming to church having done that thing, everyone in seen you, would it work? No. Even if you quit doing all those things. Because God wants your heart. And if it isn't coming from your heart because you desire God, then it's not actually that helpful. You're going to stop doing things because you don't want to be criticized? Christ didn't have a high view of those people. They're called Pharisees in the New Testament, and you can see what he thought of that type of behavior. He wants you to live according to his will because it's your will. He wants you to share his will. He wants you to be one with him as he is one with the Father. What do you think that means? He wants his will to be your will. And you think that's not possible. It's not only possible, it's already true. You think, I don't think so. Read 1 Peter. And I'll leave you with that. So, at my house, party, you're all invited. You like how I end it, right? Okay, have a great day.